Hi everyone, and welcome to The Secret Life of a Student Athlete. I'm Diana Dakik, and I used to ride horses for fun. And I'm currently joined by a world-ranked Taekwondo fighter, my main man, Jordan, and soon to be a fish in the water, Daniel. And our special guest is our 8-time motocross African ladies champion, Leah Heygate. Welcome, Leah. We're so happy to have you. First and foremost, we're going to dive straight into your background, basically. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you even got into motocross?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So my background really, I started at 5, started racing at 5. My dad got me into the racing, but it was really my mum who bought the bike to start with. And yeah, I started riding at 5, started competing, and I started competing on a PV80, and there wasn't really a class for that. And I was really one of the only ladies or girls riding at the stage. So really, I just filled in and mucked it out with the boys. And yeah, it was really, really fun. And I guess I don't think my parents expected me to bite, like the bug to bite as much as it did. And I still love it. Would still race every single day if I could. But yeah, that's my background.
I just want to interject and say that I met you through horse riding, and I remember you doing, like, you were obviously like a good rider as well. And then I watched motocross like steal you from us, and I was like, no, not our Leah.
Yeah, no, I think I did. If anything was sporty like, I would find it and do it.
Yeah.
Any sort of sport, I was there. And as much as I loved my horse riding, I think motocross really stole my heart, and the horse riding was more of a hobby
Yeah.
than something I could take further.
Yeah.
Was it the adrenaline? Out of curiosity.
Horse riding is adrenalining too.
Sorry,
Excuse me.
no
Yeah,
shade.
really
No
intense.
I would say a little bit the adrenaline rush, but I think it's the dedication that it requires. When you're racing, it's all about the racing, and it's just you, your bike, and the track. When you're competing with another animal or another person face on, it's a lot of you got to take into consideration a lot of other people. With on a bike, it's you and yourself.
So what was it like going, because obviously I knew you when we were all very young, and what was it like doing the motocross at such a big level? Because even when you were younger, you were doing it at such a high level. What was that like, as well as trying to go to school?
I think it was intimidating, I think is a good way to put it. It's trying to balance a social life, being an athlete, and exceeding in sport, succeeding in sport, and while trying to balance schooling. I was very lucky. My mum taught me for my whole primary school, so I didn't have to balance too much in terms of academics and sport when I was much younger. But as soon as I went to secondary school, it was a big shift. You know, in Zambia there weren't that many schools available close by, so that meant I went to boarding school. So boarding school then meant training was sacrificed during the week, and you could only race and train on the weekends. And yeah, on weekends you're supposed to be studying for tests, doing homework. So I think a lot of people don't understand that when you racing so much or you competing in a sport, something has to give. And I think for me that was socializing. So I could balance only a few things. You can't do everything as an athlete, as a student athlete.
So, sorry, how many hours did you train, like on the weekends, out of curiosity?
We'd normally train on the one day because weekend's not very long. Just gonna finish school on a Friday, drive 3 hours home. So we'd normally train on a Saturday. We get there at 7, we'd leave at 3. So it depends how many hours we get on the bike. You know, also fuel and bikes, and it depends how you're feeling, crashes. Also spare parts. You know, Zambia's very secluded from the rest of the world. We don't really get much. So I think there's a lot of struggle that goes into racing motocross that a lot of people don't know. And it's the little pieces, the tires, the tubes. You get a puncture. When are you going to get a new tube? Yeah, so I think there was a lot of things that went into it that now I look back at older, I can see it. From when I was a kid, I didn't really understand it. So yeah, that reflection now is like, well, a lot went into it.
Yeah, true. So then, because it was so hard, and obviously you were so like time constrained in general, did people try to stop you? Were people like, this is actually like, you should just go to uni. You should just put this aside and just go to uni and just do that because this is actually really difficult.
I think more so people tried to stop me, not my family. My family was always very supportive, and most of my family friends were also supportive. But I think most people tried to stop me once I'd injured myself.
Yes, I do kind of remember that actually.
Yeah, once I'd broken, like I first
Everything.
broke my pelvis, and I was laid up on a bed for 8 weeks, and everyone's like, "You're gonna go back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, broken bones happen."
We
And
love
then
we
they're
love
like,
that.
"No, it's so."
That's crazy.
That's
Mindset,
champion
yeah.
mentality right there.
And then I did my collarbone, but that was like everyone breaks a collarbone every now and
Yeah,
again.
everyone does.
And I think the biggest was when I broke my back and I was in ICU for 5 days. Everyone was
I
like, "No, you
remember
can't go
that.
back. You're done. Like, no more racing. You can't do this." And I was like, "Why? Of course I can." And I think that was the biggest hurdle to overcome in my career because it didn't just impact me physically, it impacted me mentally. And there was
Yeah.
that block of so many people don't believe I can do it. I've still got the support of so many people, but like the consequence of what happened was so big. Breaking your back is not it's not fun in games, and it's not just a broken leg or a broken arm. It could paralyze you. So then I was like, no, I have to go back. I have to prove what I can do. And I think getting back to that was bad. And then just when I was getting there, it happened again. And I knew instantly,
I'm
like, I
stressed.
broke my back. I was like, I lay there. I was lying on the track and I was like, no, my back's broken. And the people around me, like, no, you're okay. You're fine. And I said, no, it's done. And they were like, no, 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 you'll be fine. It wasn't that bad. Went for x-rays, all that. Broken back. Okay. 8 weeks again. And then I think that was a big hurdle. Like, oh, do I go back? Like internal conflict.
Oh, you actually like had to consider it this time.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was like, oh, do I go back? Do I not? What is it gonna take? And I think once I went back to it, I was like, I could never not do this. It's part of who I am. And I think once I'd accepted that and overcome that internal conflict of should I, shouldn't I, it was amazing. And I think I've done most of some of the biggest things that I could have in my racing career post breaking my back for the second time.
Wow, because it was like a mental unlock, isn't it? So it almost like frees your mind. What did you have to do to get through that mentally? Was it like so much like reflection, introspection, or did you look for support elsewhere?
Also, was that in like secondary school? Like,
At the beginning of university.
ooh,
Yeah.
Difficult
First year
time.
of university.
first year as well.
University.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
your
I'd
mental to
broken.
get through that, you had to do all the work to get through that. How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was I started studying psychology and I loved how the brain worked. And in Zambia, there's not really the access to psychologists or sports
True.
psychologists or anything like that. And we started doing a lot of work with our lecturers and with people. And I think that prodded me more to do that introspection and do that work within myself of what do I actually want to achieve in my life? What do I want to get out of it? And I think that's what made me push forward. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to do it. I've set out, I want to achieve these goals. And these are the steps I'm going to have to take to achieve them. And yeah, I worked hard. I tried to balance it all. I think it was also very frustrating because when I broke my back for the second time, I was missing some of my exams. And because I
Oh,
was in
yeah.
hospital, they were allowed me to write them second, like the second sitting. And that meant like my grades didn't come out when all my friends did, or, like registration for modules then was
Mm,
delayed. So I think that was also a mental thing, like now it's impacting my career. So
yeah.
yes, sport is my career, but now it's impacting that schooling career. Um, and once that all cleared up and I'd finished those exams and moved into second year, everything just seemed to fall into place. I took a year out to heal my body, and it actually coincidentally fell in with COVID, so there wasn't any racing.
Oh, good timing.
So I actually I didn't miss out on anything, or any series or any championships. So it was good timing, and it was just that break that not only I physically needed, but I guess I mentally needed as well.
True.
So
So that, sorry, Jordan, go.
no, I was just curious because like this year had to do with a lot of injuries. Not like breaking back though. That's wow. But more like I pulled my calf just before I went to the European University Games, which was meant to be like, oh, something I've been looking forward to like the whole year. Oh, I was curious to get a take on this. Like one thing that was so hard for me was like figuring out if you had the ability to even come back and like perform, or like yeah, like that mental, because if you're out for so long, coming back is hard in itself because you have to like recover, then you have to get strong again, then you have to even have the ability to even like compete again. That's like a different level. So like props to you for dealing with that. But like, do you have any steps you took to like do that per se?
I think the biggest thing is self-belief, and that self-drive. I'm sorry that you had to deal with injury. I think injury is one of the worst things that can face an athlete. And unfortunately it's inevitable. Um,
Mm, true.
and I think how we deal with injury is so it's so indicative of how we're going to carry on for the rest of our lives, and how we're going to carry on the challenges of our life. Um, and I look at injury as a hurdle. It's a test. Do I push harder? How do I prevent it from happening again? How do I ensure that I'm better prepared next time? Because
Hmm.
injury is going to come. There's nothing we can do about it. But how do we be better prepared for it? And how do I get through it? And I think it's that self belief of, do I want to really achieve? Because if you don't want to achieve and you don't really want to get to that position, that injury will hurdle you forever. It'll never cease to be a challenge. And I think that's one of the biggest things of that need and desire to want to do something or prove it to yourself. It's not proving to other people that's important. It's that self, for
Mm.
yourself.
That's
So,
so sorry, Diana.
no, no, don't
You know,
go.
as someone that's also faced major injuries too in my sporting career, it's it's
Like which one? Could you remind us?
don't worry about that. I don't need to go into the gory details of these injuries, you know. No, I think the worst injury I've gotten is I pulled my hamstring, and that was like 4 years ago, and it wasn't even a
And that's
tear. It
why
was
he's not
just
a pro footballer.
that's what ruined my career in football, and that's why I'm not, going to the African Cup of Nations this December. But it's interesting hearing that. But when I kind of like found out that you were the guest, one thing that came to mind is that motocross must be a male-dominated sport, right? Which means that if you did represent Zambia, you probably competed against men. That's like I'm guessing. Also, you did. So, like, what was that like? Like, how did you
It's so
kind of manage that?
Of course. So, when you're competing against men up until about 16, you're on an equal playing field. You can compete equally against them. And then after 16, like after puberty hits, men are just so much stronger and they have so much more endurance. So you can't compete with them at the same level. But because there was a limited availability of classes for women. I guess I just put myself out there and said, why not? I think it's the drive of, so what? I can do it if gas because
Oh,
power went out,
I
but
was
I
gone.
should
I was
still
going to
have
say we've
Wi-Fi.
got load shedding. This is the realities
It
of
should,
Zambia, ladies and gentlemen.
yes, it should come back. I should still have signal though. But yeah, I think competing against men is just a mental game with yourself as well. Like if um, they can do it, so can I. And I think because I grew up competing with men, I've always believed that I can
Mm.
do it, and I've always put myself against them. They don't like it. Unfortunately, they
Especially
don't.
when
They
you
don't
beat
like
them,
it.
I bet you.
Yeah, because like if I talk about Zambia specifically, um, there's two men that can beat me in Zambia, and that's my brother and one
Yo,
boy
that's so
named
Country.
cold. That's actually
named
like,
That
Maurice.
is
bro,
cold.
drop the mic. Like, yo, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but they don't like it. They really don't like it. And like if get behind them on the track, they'll do everything. I think I was like 16, 17, and I was competing against a full grown man. He was a father of kids, like, and he took me out. He would literally try and ride into me and make me crash. And eventually I passed him in the corner and I stopped and I shouted at him. I said, just stop your nonsense. And I went on to beat him. And I think that was the biggest like, shift in saying, like, you know, I will be who I want to be. And if you don't like it, then go make space for your own ego because I'm not going to entertain it. So I
Wow,
think that was the biggest thing.
that's actually so sick. And for context, right? I just Googled it. There's 21 million people in Zambia, and Leah essentially is like the best at motocross, which is so sick.
That's insane. That's actually so cool. Like, wow.
It's crazy to me because, like, obviously, like, I know a lot of Leah's backstory, so I have like secondhand pride now. I'm just sat here, like, yeah.
Daniel's like, I know that person.
I know it's cool. Like, it's crazy to hear this side of it, because even like this kind of detail, obviously, like, that's not the side of it I know at all. So it's crazy that I mean, I'm not surprised, to be honest, that the men don't love that you beat them. But I think it's really like a testament to, I guess, your like self-belief, your ambition, the drive to be like, well, if there's no space for me, I'm just going to make my own space in this category anyway, because I want to be on the bike. I want to go and ride. I think it's it's such a cool story that you've got. So then what happened then? Now I've just invested in the story, right? So you went on and you do these competitions with these men, right? And then, but obviously you've won all the women categories. I assume you just clean sweep. You just enter and you win, right? Is how I remember this was happening.
I think
And then,
in terms of the African Continental Championship, it started in 2013. I think it was our first ladies only race. I competed in the championship previously, but like with the men, or the boys. But I can't even remember where we came. I know as a team, like Team Zambia, with my teammates, we came second and third and sort of thing.
wow.
So I know we did contribute towards the team points. But in terms of a women's only class, it started in 2013, and I was a baby. I was 13 and competing against fully grown women. They were 25, 26, and you looked up to them like, wow, they've been to world championship races, and I lined up against them, and I think the first one I came second,
Wow.
and then the next one was held in
That's when we should have
Zambia.
known. That's when everyone should have known.
The next one was held in Zambia, and it was right after I'd broken my pelvis, and I came third. And the following year, I was at least able to ride the bigger CC bike, so a 250, as opposed to a 125, so equal playing field. And I went into this event, and the girl that was coming from South Africa had been in Europe racing the European World Championship, and it wasn't supposed to be allowed. You weren't allowed to race the World Championship and then come to an African Continental Championship.
Okay.
For fairness, But I said to everyone, no, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Let's just grow the class, grow the women, you know. And I went on to win each race by 45 seconds plus. And from then on, so 2015
Mad.
till last year, that's how many races were held. I'd won them all. So each year there was
People must line up and be
held.
like, oh my God, Leah's here. They must be like,
I hope
I
they don't
can't
do that.
even win.
I hope they don't do that. Like I always tell the ladies that I hope that you want to beat me. I don't line up here to trophy hunt or get another win. I line up here because this is my category, is where I belong.
Mhm.
But I aspire for you guys to beat me, to want to beat me.
It's such a good
You need to
mindset.
be able to beat me. And I think that's how you build up them as well. I know there were a couple ladies that didn't want to race us. And it's like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to crash into you. I will respect you on the track. But you also need to aspire to beat me because that's where you're going. If that's what you're working towards, that's who you need to beat. And I think racing the person that's better than you or being in a class that has better people is only going to make you better. It's like
True.
competing in the higher category to allow yourself to be better. And I think that's what I did in terms of the men, compete with the men to make myself better. I might not be able to win there, but at least I hone in on my skills. I focus. I learn to different things I can do within my own category. So
you feel the challenge over there and it grows you, doesn't it?
Exactly.
That's amazing. I think it's really nice your like mindset around, because obviously I've seen the trajectory, I guess, of the work that you do and that your family does to make sure that the women's categories are growing. How do you try and do that? Because I guess on one hand, because you are still quite young. How old are you, Leah?
26.
Yeah, you're still very young.
I'm still young.
Yeah. And so it's crazy that obviously you're leading it in terms of competition, but it also feels like you're leading it in terms of developing it. And so obviously there are lots of young girls coming up behind you. And obviously you're saying like, I hope everyone wants to beat me. Like if you're the benchmark, you want everyone to come up to the benchmark, right? Yeah. So what kind of work are you doing outside of obviously just the racing? I guess you're in quite a lot of like kind of the management space of the sport.
Yeah, I think in terms of Zambia, my mum is really involved here in the sport. I've been obviously in Mauritius
Yes.
studying, so I haven't really been here this year. But whenever I can, I try to get involved in trainings, train the ladies, try promote trainings. If I'm ever at the track, as I really try to support the ladies and youth. I think
Yes.
even if they're boys, any form of training and support is better, just in terms of safety as well. It gives them that support of safety. So yeah, I really try. I enjoy the training as well. I enjoy training others and sharing my knowledge. But as I tell others as well, I might be good at what I do, but I'm no professional. I'm not the best of the best. I can only share with you what I know. Then you have to go on. There's going to be things that I do that may be not aligned, that don't align with how you want to do them. And you have to adapt that knowledge so it fits in with you. And I think rather it's just sharing knowledge and sharing experience and giving back, especially being with the youth and giving back with them, and especially in teams when you go there and supporting them and being there at the trackside and doing walks with them. I think that's what I do the most.
Yeah, but also Leah, so obviously you like a few minutes ago you literally said whilst like racing is career, it was also affecting my academic career. So obviously it was like really important to you to go to uni. Could you talk to me a little bit about how you decided that was an important step for you? But also, I don't know, obviously we know quite a lot of swimmers, I guess, in Zambia are able to go on and get scholarships to different unis. Like we know lots of people that have gone to America, lots of people that go to South Africa and stuff. Was that opportunity given to you as well, or not really?
No. So motorsport is not really classed as university sport at all.
Hmm.
And when you tell people, no, I do motocross, they're like, what do you mean? Like,
Like, oh, you ride a bike.
no one,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think they
They don't
understand
get
the
it.
level
Yeah.
it goes to. They don't get it. And I think in terms of when you look at universities, you're looking at rowers, swimmers,
Exactly.
athletics, any form of athletics. That's what universities are looking for. And it's like, well, there's a whole load of other sports out there that you really should be considering because they probably have a longer ability to succeed and promote the university itself. So yeah, obviously when I decided to go to university, I knew racing couldn't be forever, and it's as much as I'm good at it, it can't be forever. So I needed something to fall back on, and I've always that's always been true to me, and I've always worked really hard to do that and balance school and university. And I think I definitely chose one of the longest degrees to do. I don't know why I did this, but when I first signed up, I was like, oh, I love this profession, I love it, and I'm gonna do it. And I think I didn't anticipate how challenging it would be to see it all through. 7 years of studying is a lot. I'm sure
What
Dan would
degree?
know.
Is that medicine?
Psychology.
Psychology. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
So
in South
it's
Africa, you have to do like your undergrad, then you have to do like so many things to become like a qualified psychologist, right? To then go off and practice
yeah,
as a psychologist. Yeah.
yeah. You have to do your undergrad and then your honors and then your masters. Whereas in Europe, you do your undergrad, masters, PhD.
Mm.
So I guess it's equivalent, but at the same time, spaces are limited. So they don't tell you this when you first sign up.
Yes.
Each university space for masters is only 10 slots per university available. And with over 700 people applying, it's really, really challenging to get in.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, I think lots of people think, oh, no, when you're an athlete, you still have lots of time. And a lot of my colleagues and friends did all their work experience and, they volunteered time. And they're like, oh, why don't you? And I'm like,
You don't have the
when?
time. Yeah.
When? When would I do this? Um, and I think one of my biggest things in getting into Mauritius was this is what I do, these are the sports I do, and this is how it shaped me.
Yeah.
This is how sport has shaped me as a person. This is what I've experienced in terms of observing sport and people within this space. And that was what my research was on in terms of injuries and the psychological impact of injuries in motocross athletes. So I was like, this is what I have. I don't have the work experience of all these other people, but I have life experience. And I think that was the biggest push to be able to get to go
Nice.
there and finish my studies. So yeah.
Do you want to go on and kind of like merge both loves, but merge the psychology and the sport, or do you want to kind of keep it all separate?
I would love to merge the psychology with the sport. My field of interest and specialization has been in child psychology, though, working with
Nice.
children and schools. Because I think one of my biggest things is when I was going to high school in Zambia, I didn't have the support, and there were a lot of
Yeah.
students that could succeed and do really, really well, but they weren't given the support. If they weren't getting the A-star grades from reciting notes off the whiteboard, then they weren't good
Yes.
enough.
Yeah.
But
I,
I feel that that's not fair.
Yeah.
Every student should get equal opportunity to succeed, and that's what I really, really wanted to work towards in terms of psychology back home. So that's what directed my field of interest. But I am also trying to think of ways I can then incorporate counseling into sport.
Hmm.
So doing
Very cool.
sport counseling and do additional courses to really specialize on that and getting people through injury. I think because my own story can help others. experience, not basically my story, but experience in terms of guiding and suggesting and giving them options.
Well,
For
and
sure.
so I just had a question. So you said you kind of mentor and like help other people, kind of kids and younger people in motocross. Do you find that they've got similar challenges in terms of juggling between studying and like motocross, or they have to maybe choose between one or the other just because of pressures from like school or parents or any of that?
I think it's for them, they have to choose. Pressure from parents and school is very high. I think even for me, when I was at school, my mum would just say, Leah's going. They didn't have a choice in the matter. Like, Leah's leaving on Thursday, she'll be back on Monday. You don't have a say. This is what she's doing. But, some schools are a lot more strict and going, oh no, they have to be here for the school play, they have to do this and they have to do that. And then you can't expect a child to succeed in a sport that is so physically and mentally demanding. I think if you Google, motocross is actually the most physically and mentally demanding sport there is, across all sports. So I think for kids, for them to have to choose is when they have so much passion is really challenging for them. And I guess for parents as well, because they've also got to see it's also expensive. So there's a funding
Yeah.
aspect of it. Can they balance putting their kid through school and the sport, or is the sport just a hobby and they must focus on school?
I kind of had a follow-up question on that as well. So obviously you've done psychology, you're like a high-performing athlete. And you know the Zambian context, which is very similar to the Nigerian context, which is probably similar to a lot of other African contexts.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I've been thinking about this as well, and we've kind of been talking about it, like educational system could do a bit differently, at least within the context of our countries. To firstly, I don't know if it was in Zambia, but in Nigeria, the concept of a student athlete was not really a thing. Like we were just kids that loved sports in the eyes of society. And then, but we were student athletes. Like, I feel like if you kind of give that identity a thing, it makes it a lot different in the way like this school approaches these kind of kids. Do you get what I mean? It's not just someone who's like, just do your academics and stop having fun outside in the playground during break time. It's like, okay, do your academics, but you have a talent. Let's help you out. So
Yeah.
what do you think like school systems can do a bit differently? And
I
why that is important to do this for student athletes?
I think in terms of supporting student athletes, in supporting them in doing the subjects that they need to do to succeed. Having 12 subjects as a grade 8, grade 9 is not supporting them. If they have a talent in terms of any area on the sporting field, that should be honed in on and supported. I think the biggest thing is also nutrition. In schools, like especially boarding schools, everyone is fed the same things and they're expected to still perform or still do certain things, but their nutrition isn't supported. So how do they expect? Can remember when we did athletics day and some of my classmates were running, 11-second 100 meters. Obviously we didn't have the correct timing things or anything.
Yeah.
But that's talent. That's really, really good talent. And if it had been honed in on and worked towards, we might have had Olympic athletes from them.
I
But it
completely
wasn't
agree.
picked up on. It wasn't
Yeah.
picked up on, it wasn't supported. Maybe if they had said, okay, for your O levels, you're going to do 5 O levels instead of 10, they could have focused a lot more. And I think it's giving them the time to focus on sport because there's not time allocated for it.
It's such a good point because I remember at our sports days, I'm sure all our contexts are going to be identical, to be honest. At our sports days, we had people who were lightning speed. And it was crazy, and they would like obviously break school records, but that's kind of where it all stopped. It stopped at school. And then with less like niche sports, I guess, like Leah's and also like riding, there isn't the space for that. They're like, yeah, it's kind of cool that you do that, but like they don't care
Yeah.
all that much that that's what you do. So it's difficult because in all our African contexts, there is no pipeline out of school into sport. Even with more niche sports, so running and swimming. Swimming, I think, is a little bit different in Zambia, to be honest, but that's for a separate conversation. But the pipeline out of school into a professional athletics career is almost non-existent because a lot of our Olympians, I think, except the swimmers, have been almost like scouted by accident. So if I think about some of the runners, a lot of them have come from actually like the army, which is also quite random, kind of picked up and then put into like Olympic spaces. So there isn't, it's weird that there's no pipeline out of school into sport, actually.
Yeah, it's very strange. I was gonna give Daniel his flowers because at our sports day, Daniel's a bit. It was okay. It was fastish. It wasn't like.
All I can
but-
say is there was a Usain Bolt before Usain Bolt. That's all I can say.
But I do like that's like actually very true. Like I remember like when we used to do sports like back in the day, bro, we had some guys that were quick and
Yeah.
like in terms of football skills, it was just naturally gifted,
Yeah,
talented, and stuff
agree.
like that. But we had no essential structure, and yeah, like I think that's something that definitely needs to work on because I think it affects the grassroots system, like program, and this is just in general. Because now like our football is let's not talk about Nigeria football.
And this is, if you then look at a lot of the people that represent Nigeria or all these African countries at these international competitions, they've had at some point to go out of the country to
Yeah.
compete. It's like all the Nigerian, like the probably like top 5 best Nigerian footballers that will represent Nigeria at the AFCON, for example, would have had to probably train outside of the country to really get good at it. And you lose a lot of years from like maybe whenever you can start like getting into sports till about your teenage years just because of this. And I've heard stories about kids that they get scouted, but their parents are like, oh no, you need to focus on school and you need to become a doctor, you need to do this. And then suddenly they lose the opportunity because obviously teams want to shape you from quite a young age. And it's like, if we have all this talent with all the millions and millions of people we have in Africa, like there should be a system. Schools should be more accommodating to this talent because if you look at the American system as an example, just from a financial point of view, look how much money just their college or university sports bring in, over in the high school to keep the schools running. And and it's like there's all these stories about people being born into poverty and then being able to come out of poverty just because of sports. And we could have that in Africa, with these right systems made it. And I think your point on like reducing the number of subjects actually resonates with me a lot because I was thinking about like why were we doing so many
Why are we doing
Yeah.
12
subjects?
Why are we
Because
doing
they would
12
say, oh,
subjects?
there's no time to train. But it's like, of course there's no time to train when we're doing every single subject on the planet.
Yeah, what's a
You
free
know.
period?
Also,
Exactly.
did this happen to you guys in Zambia? Because when we used to even have break time, sometimes the teachers would also like say, "Oh, no break today," or they'll cut it in half because we had
Oh,
like
no,
extra.
at my school, we never had that. We got break time because the teachers wanted to also go on break time.
Yeah.
It was
We
we were
did
the
get
first
break.
set of our school, so they were like, oh yeah, we need you guys to be ready for the exams, so like break time we're gonna teach
We
you
did
and
have
da,
to
da, da.
stay late, like a lot in my school, especially when you were in our IGCSE year. They made us stay late a lot to do like extra work or past papers and stuff. But
Like
I think
they cancelled our sport.
sorry, Leah,
Like
continue.
at where I was, where I was, they would cancel because sport was normally from 1 till 3. They would,
Yeah.
especially in exam classes, they'd be like, no sport, you have to go study.
Why like what we're talking about is important because one thing I realized like listening to actually like ex-NBA players is because I also focused on like the NCAA, which is like the university, like the college sports system. I never realized how much like at least in I'm speaking from basketball. Like they have like fundamental skills already from a high school, primary school level because they have the AAU programs as well. So they don't realize
Foundationally, they're very solid.
it's so
Mm.
solid. Like their high
Yeah.
school basketball players are so solid. Like they've got like a lot of the fundamentals down. So by the time they get to college, you're not learning fundamentals and you're learning strategy and stuff. So that by the time you get to the NBA, it's different skill entirely. You're literally
Yeah.
reading the game, you know?
My riding teacher used to say, like, I'm not your teacher anymore, I'm your coach. When I got to a certain level, she was like, there's such a difference between like teaching, which I guess is what you're saying, Jordan. Foundational, this is how you ride a horse, sit on it, don't break its back, blah, 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 don't pull on its mouth. And now we're fine tuning. So I guess that's what you're saying. That but we just don't we just don't have that in sports in especially like in our country, I guess. We don't have a this is how you start a race fast. This is how you get acceleration. This is your whatever positioning on how you can sprint better, this kind of thing. We don't get that really. And I think what I'd like to circle back around to is Leah, you were saying about like, you guys are funding the trips, you guys are funding the bikes, you guys are funding the petrol. It's then becomes like, what would have happened to your talent if you didn't have the backing from like your family or your supporters or your sponsors, because there isn't that system built in for us in Africa where we can get paid to do our sports. So obviously we have to do plan Bs. Like the reason you're like, right, motocross isn't forever. I need a plan B because I need to be able to do some stuff after I can't ride this bike. Kind of similar reason I then went to uni because I knew that riding wasn't going to make me money. So that's such a factor I think that is taken into consideration when we make the choice to do both, which I think is, I don't want to contradict myself. I think it's a great choice to have done both, but some people, I guess, are forced into that to have to do both because they need plan B.
Yeah.
So there's some multifaceted, I think, kind of dynamic that forces us into these decisions.
I couldn't agree with you more there. And I think the biggest thing is it's normally that B, the studying, that then overrides the sport aspect, and the studying gets too intense and the athlete actually just drops out of the sport entirely to now focus on plan B, because they can't manage both, because they haven't had that foundation of how to balance both. I think at school level, you still have the support of your family and maybe, your peers at school. But if you're at boarding, you have your boarding house master, there's strategy, there's organization. When you go to university, it's now your nutrition, you're balancing cooking meals, cleaning your apartment. And I think there's no foundation of teaching athletes how to have a good plan to start university.
Yes, good point. Good point. So I'm going to dial it back now, Leah. If you were your younger self again, what advice would you give yourself way back when, I guess, when you were making all these decisions, when you broke your back, when you were deciding whether or not you're going to go to uni? What kind of advice, at any point you can pick, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would probably give myself the advice of when I was first starting university and tell myself to just trust the process. Allow yourself to fail, allow yourself to succeed, and not want more. Once you've achieved the goal, don't expect more from it. I think that's one of the biggest
Interesting.
things that I expected. Like, I achieved the goal, I did this, but it should have been that. That's going beyond the scope of what the goal was. And I think being proud of achieving what you'd already outlined and not wanting more. I think that's what the advice I would give my younger self is: give yourself the acknowledgement of achieving that first goal.
Wait, Sarah, I was just gonna say like that's actually so real. Cause what's it called? The last competition I had, like the last international one I had, obviously as a competitor you always want to win. It doesn't matter who you're facing, Olympic level or champ, I don't care who it is. You want to win. But I had done previous competitions before that, and I'd always fallen short of like winning my first international fight because I just started doing that this year. So I went into the next one being like, I just want to win my first international fight and get on the world rankings. That's like the first primary goal. And then I remember like after like I won that, adrenaline levels were like high and everything and all that. And then the next fight I had, because it's a knockout rounds in Taekwondo. So the next one was also a really close fight. And I lost that one. So it was like I won the first round, then he won the other two. But I remember like leaving that being, it was very weird because like I lost that and obviously I wanted to win, but I achieved the goal I went to the competition for, which was to literally win. We could just get on the world rankings before the year runs out. I don't care where I land. I just want to get on that. And then next year we can figure out the rest of the process. So I hear that like that's actually so real.
That's a good way to circle back around to my introduction. And now you've just told us your world ranking story. Thank you so much for joining us, Leah. So this has been the secret life of Leah Heygate, our motocross rider from Zambia. So everybody, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below and switch on your notifications. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Leah. We really enjoyed this conversation.